Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Art Troublecast. Today we will continue the conversation about contemporary artists that you need to know.
The first artist I want to talk about is Jackson Pollock, a representative of abstract expressionism. At first, he painted figuratively, but over time, he developed his own style of creation, action painting, characteristic dripping and splashing of paint onto the canvas. His creation process was very interesting. He selected fragments that suit him and destroyed others and started from scratch. He used crazy and spontaneous painting techniques.
Yes, in Pollock's case, it's especially worth paying attention to the act of creation and technique. Pollock abandoned the use of traditional brushes and other typical painting tools, and even easels and canvases. In his studio, he spread out a pad on the floor on which the next work was to be created. Then, circling around it, he poured paint from cans on the material from four sides, creating a background. When this stage was completed, he fell into a kind of artistic trance. He sprayed the painting with paint from cans to create a composition and smeared the layer with various tools, which could even include streaks and other random objects.
Pollock dripped paint onto the canvas to convey the emotion of movement. He explored themes including surreal navigation of the unconscious and Jungian symbolism. An interesting fact is that he listened to jazz music while painting.
A big plus for jazz. Another artist I would like to mention is Vasily Kandinsky. The main role in his painting was played by color and compositional rhythm associated with music. Getting rid of objectivity took place slowly in his paintings. It's worth noting that Kandinsky, like many of his contemporaries, didn't like the word abstract. According to Kandinsky, the best term would be real art because such art creates, next to the external world, a new world of art, the world of spiritual nature. A world that can only be created thanks to art.
Kandinsky was initially associated with expressionism and symbolism. His first works have clear influences from nature, but over time he began to move towards more and more abstract forms. He was a teacher and one of the leaders of Bauhaus, a famous school of visual arts in Germany, which had a huge impact of the development of modern art.
I would also add that Kandinsky's abstract art didn't strive for decorativeness. It was about much more. Kandinsky searched for the relationship between music and painting, comparing the impact of colors to the sound of musical instruments, and at the same time defining the psychological meaning of individual colors.
His interest in music was impressive. Another artist I would like to mention is Henri Matisse. He was a leading representative of Fauvism, an artistic movement characterized by intense colors, expressive use of colors, breaking with traditional perspective and realism. The name Fauvism comes from French and was given by critics.
An interesting fact is that Matisse and Kandinsky graduated in law and later took up painting. In parallel with painting, Matisse also created sculptures in which he was inspired by archaic art and the so-called primitive. It's also worth adding that after undergoing cancer surgery, Matisse was in a wheelchair, so he couldn't paint at an easel, and he began to create collages using lash colors.
Matisse and Pablo Picasso, more about Picasso in part one, were great rivals, but also friends. Although their styles differed, both had a huge impact of the development of contemporary art. They often met, talked about art, and inspired each other. Matisse's works often feature women who were an important element of his work.
Yes, yes, that's true. Another artist worth attention is Salvador Dali, a Spanish artist who was initially associated with various avant garde movements, but in 1929 he joined the Surrealists and is most often associated with this movement.
Dali is best known for his painting The Persistence of Memory, which depict distorted clocks melting in a surreal landscape. The painting has become one of the most recognizable works of art in the world. Dali was not only a brilliant painter, but also an extremely eccentric person. He was characterized by bizarre behavior, the most famous of which were his characteristic narrow, curved bow tie, absurd statements, and controversial artistic activities, such as appearing in public places in strange disguises.
Indeed, he was eccentric. He studied at the Royal Academy of Arts in Madrid, but was expelled twice and never took his final exams. He believed he was better qualified than those who would examine him. And at first he appreciated Picasso, but then he decided that one of his paintings was worth more than all of Picasso's paintings. It's worth adding that the fascination with surrealism led to the world of the subconscious recalled during sleep, and that surrealism was based on the philosophical theory of the founder of psychoanalysis.
Dali did not limit himself only to painting. He also created sculptures, film designs, photographs, and designed theater sets. Dali developed his own style, which combined realistic details with fantastic and distorted forms. He had a complicated relationship with the Mexican painter Frida Kahlo. More about Frida in part one. Although they were both icons of art, their meetings were full of tension.
Definitely one of the most interesting figures in art. Finally, I would like to mention Georges Braque, who, together with Picasso, was the creator of Cubism, a movement in art that involves creating images using solids and geometric figures. He was the only artist to have an exhibition at the Louvre during his lifetime.
His initial works were strongly related to Impressionism and Post Impressionism, but over time he began to look for new ways of presenting space and form. In his early works, he was also inspired by African art, which influenced his later work in Cubism. Braque became known for his still lifes, which were among to the most important works of Cubism. The artist experimented with the texture, form, and representation of objects in a way that broke them down into different perspectives. His works show how he played with space and introduced an innovative approach to composition to painting. Braque also had a major influence on other fields of art, such as sculpture and graphics. He also painted on glass and paper, and his graphic works often combined elements of color.
Although Braque and Picasso were rivals, their collaboration was very fruitful. They shared their ideas, which led to the dynamic development of Cubism. They created together, experimenting with form and space, and their close relationship contributed to the success of both artists. After the end of the Cubism period, Braque continued his artistic exploration, moving on the more calm and abstract forms. His later works have a more complex color palette and are more harmonious, in contrast to the strict and broken composition of the Cubist period.
Braque was famous for its subtle color palette, dominated by shades of brown, gray, beige, and green. His works from this era are also characteristic of the development of the texture painting technique, which allowed for more complex visual effects. Okay, and there was the fifth and final artist we talked about today. Thank you and see you next week.